Hello, I just wanted to give a quick review of my first experience sewing a garment with the Lutterloh system. I chose to do a child's Christmas dress because it felt very low risk if it didn't turn out very well. It's not like my 3-year-old daughter was going to critique it. She's probably going to wear it either way. And I started with pattern, let's see, number 80. And just the original Lutterloh system book. So not in any of the supplements, just the original book. So pattern number 80. This is the pattern I was working with. You have the bodice pieces, the sleeve, the skirt pieces, and the gathering pieces. Start off with, I would say, the bodice piece fit very well because that's the whole premise of the Lutterloh system, is you're supposed to be able to sew a garment that fits you perfectly. And when it came to measuring my daughter with the 2 measurements that they suggest, or that you have to use, not just suggest, you have to use, for the bodice, it was a perfect fit. I was very pleased with that. It fit her perfectly. The skirt, there are no instructions as you saw on the pattern pieces, just literally the pattern pieces. And so if you are unfamiliar with sewing, if it's a garment type that you've never done before, you might have to look up some YouTube videos on how to sew that specific garment. I was confused with the 2 skirt pattern pieces. I still am confused with it, so I just kind of went with what I imagined was the right way to do it. I originally just sewed it straight onto the bodice and it looked like a trash bag shape. There was no shape to it at all, and then I realized there are some instructions, like the top had a squiggly line which represented a gather, and there were symbols for that, and I should have looked that up and I didn't. And so I was supposed to gather the skirts to match the bodice, and it would have given a nice silhouette. But because I didn't do that, I went ahead and just sewed elastic on the inside of the garment, and it had the zigzag stitch on the outside, which I didn't like. So I covered it with this gold band, or gold ribbon. And so as far as that fit, I do think the fit was great, except for the sleeves. The sleeves were too big, and I don't know if it's because it's a child's pattern and maybe it was intended for like an 8-year-old and I was sewing for a 3-year-old. I'm really not sure, but the bodice fit perfectly. The skirt, once gathered, fit great. The sleeves were too big. Also, with this pattern, I do wonder if it's supposed to be a scrunched look. My daughter just refused to scrunch it. It felt uncomfortable for her. And I'll show you a little video in the end of her wearing it. She didn't like the fabric type, so she doesn't like the dress, but I think it looks adorable. And so as far as the fit, I was very pleased. I thought it was a great fit. And as far as the sewing experience in general, I had so much more fun sewing this dress with the Lutterloh patterns I created than with any pattern I've purchased from a store. It just felt like sewing a dress from a pattern has a lot of pressure. You have to do everything right. Everything has to be meticulous, and it just feels like there's so much pressure, and at the end of the garment, it's completely possible to sew something perfectly that doesn't fit you well at all. I've experienced that multiple times, which is why I was motivated to try the Lutterloh system. And my first garment that I've sewn has worked out really well. It's really exciting. I had never sewn gathers like this on the bottom. I'd never done that, so that was a first experience for me, and it was fun. There wasn't any pressure. All I did was look up some techniques on YouTube, and I understood it. I would say, so the pattern they gave me for the gathers on the top were too short, and I figured that out on this side. Like, I forget the length that they suggest you use, but I needed to double it. So that was a quick fix for me, and again, it was low pressure. It's for a child, and so I just doubled it, and on this side I made the correct length, and it worked out fine. You can't tell the difference. And for the bottom, again, it was too short. Maybe the gathers aren't supposed to be this tight. I don't know. Again, there are no instructions really, just a few symbols here and there. So there's a lot of freedom, and that's really nice. Like, I prefer it that way. It doesn't take very long if you get stuck. I'm sewing a garment for myself now, and I got stuck on a part, and I was on YouTube for about 5 minutes, and I figured out, oh, this is probably what they're intending for me to do, and I did it, and it was great. It just, again, feels very no pressure, very fun. I would suggest making, if you're sewing for yourself and not a child, maybe making a muslin first, just a mock-up, an example, just so you can kind of figure out what you're doing, see if it does fit, and then use your fabric, just to make sure the fit is exactly what you want it to be. And so that's what I'm currently doing. That will be my next video, is I'm sewing myself a top, and I'm very excited to show you all that process, but I'm currently in the middle of the whole project, just sewing a mock-up for myself before I move on to cutting into my fabric. So again, if you're looking for something that's supposed to be fitted for you and you're okay with making your own pattern pieces based off your own measurements, I think this is a great product. I would suggest going for it. If you're a super beginner, maybe sew a few pattern pieces first, just to learn, because those patterns are going to tell you what to do and give you step-by-step instructions, and this is not. So this is more for intermediate or expert level sewers who kind of have an idea what they're doing. I still consider myself beginner intermediate, but because YouTube exists and so many people have shared resources for free on how to sew different garments, I find it quite easy just to search in Google or YouTube to figure out what I'm doing. And so this first experience is really good. I really enjoyed it. I'll go ahead and show you the pattern pieces I created. A really brief overview of the symbols that are provided on the pattern and what they mean. So here's that squiggle line on the skirt pattern that I did not follow. That means to gather. And then you see the bodice has this symbol, which means you can add facing, or you should add facing. I didn't, it was fine. Let's see. So VM, that means it's the center front. RR, let's see, ruffles and frills. And so yeah, it's the basic symbols of a pattern piece. The thing I'd like to add is if you Google Lutterloh patterns, you might find patterns in the supplements. This is supplement number 310. The pattern I'm sewing is actually the first one. I took it out to sew it. So if you Google it and you find a pattern that you really like, it might not be in this original book. I believe this was published in like the 80s and they haven't updated it. Instead, they chose to release supplements every spring, summer, winter, fall. So I think 4 supplements a year. And so they have a snapshot of what you'll find inside on the website. I do wish they could just let you see every single page of a supplement, because I think it's 40 pages per supplement, but I don't think they do. But this one was for, I think 2019 spring. I don't quite remember, but like has really cool patterns like that one, which I would love to make. Yeah, Halloween type costumes. So yeah, you can, those are, I think, typically around $20 for the supplements. But I think, so this I believe is 180 patterns, and some of them are clearly dated, but some are still applicable. Fashion changes, but the style of actually sewing a garment kind of stays the same. And currently the garment I'm sewing, it's not in here, but I'm sewing a shirt that doesn't have sleeves, and so I took the shirt pattern and then stole a pattern from in here and copied the sleeve pattern and put it together. So there's a lot of versatility. I just want you to be aware that if you buy this book, it's going to be patterns from the 80s. If you want more updated stuff, you're going to have to buy the supplements. And that's, I think, around $20. It's on the website. The pattern pieces I created with the Lutterloh system for my daughter's dress. You can see that's the back bodice piece, the front bodice piece, and the sleeve that I thought was too big. Just my opinion though. But as you can see, what it does is basically creates dots along the ruler line that they have you follow, and I would suggest getting Taylor rulers, those curved edge rulers, to connect the dots. It makes it easier. I got some for really cheap on Amazon. Also, one thing you really don't want to forget is putting in the seam allowance. So I did that once and was quite upset because it just makes a lot of work for yourself. But yeah, remember, put in the seam allowance when you make a pattern piece and then cut it out. I just used, this is a paper bag from Meyer. I don't really remember where I got this. I just keep random materials like that around for projects like this. And so, yeah, these are the pattern pieces I created with the Lutterloh system that helped me sew my daughter's dress. Can you spin for me again? No. Go ahead and spin. Oh, that's good. Thank you. All right. Now just say cheese. Cheese!